What's the reasoning behind linking tipping in the United States to the overall bill amount? Is there a substantial difference in the effort required to prepare a $60 steak compared to a $20 steak at the same restaurant? I don't have an answer to this question given the circus that is our tipping culture. I'm not sure one exists. I was faced with a similar conundrum recently when I was applying for a building permit with my town. The cost of the building permit is based on the cost of the work being done, not the significance of the work, not the size of the work, but rather just the cost of the work to me. If I'm getting my roof redone and I get a quote for $10,000 and another for $20,000, the permit for the more expensive quote is going to cost me more too. It's completely devoid of logic. There isn't. In nearly as restaurants, the entire tip legally goes to the server. While a larger bill tends to correlate to a larger party to serve, it isn't always the case. The issue is that restaurants can have very inconsistent business and owners tend to want to limit labor costs as much as possible, especially if the restaurant is dead. Tipping is a very faulty way of ensuring that restaurant minimizes the costs of labor when there isn't work to be done. I don't agree with tipping, so I don't go to business that take a tip credit. No, there's absolutely no difference between the two. It's like earning a commission for a sale, with the exception that it's voluntary. Is there any difference in effort selling a $10K car and a $15K car? No, but the salesman gets more money with the $15,000 sale because that benefits the business more than the $10,000 sale. Prices are made up. I know most cars don't go for $10,000 or $15,000 these days. In my opinion, it shouldn't be voluntary if they are going with the commission model, but that's my opinion. While I agree that tipping is ridiculous and servers should just be paid more, there are reasons why. For example, at a fine dining restaurant, a server will often be expected to know a crazy amount of detail about the menu, including wine pairings at different price points for everything on the menu, every ingredient on every item on the menu, etc. They are also required to learn and perform a lot of additional tasks that aren't required at like an Olive Garden, such as tableside prep. A bigger bill often means more people at the table, and so more work for the server. An expensive restaurant is also typically expected to have better customer service and more experienced staff, which makes for a better experience. Also, if you live in a country where tipping is the practice, you fucking tip. If you protest the system by taking food out of the mouths of working class people, you're basically a scab. Expectations are much higher for the waitstaff at a place that serves $60 steaks. I have a local steakhouse I love where the steaks are all $55. The waitstaff, waiter, busboys, sommelier, person bringing the cocktails from the bar, etc. are all way more attentive, and there are more of them to split it across than if I go to Chili's. They get paid more, and tipped more, because they are good and deserve it. It used to be that waiters acted as your personal agent with the kitchen. If the kitchen screwed up, they would or should step in and tell them that they can serve it. They were the middleman in the transaction with a vested interest in seeing that the customer was treated well. Not that it's a matter of course that they receive a fat tip, the gesture has become meaningless. The difference is the quality of the waitstaff. The server from the cheap steakhouse would stick out like a sore thumb in a high-end restaurant. That difference in quality costs money. This is why the high-end places turn down now applicants than they accept, while your local Applebee's is perpetually understaffed. Overall, as someone who is currently a server, restaurants should be paying an appropriate wage to all staff, but the kitchen should be receiving a substantial amount. I am nothing without my dishwashers, my chef, my cooks, and prep team. I am merely a messenger, and I owe my success to them. Tipping in the United States is linked to the overall bill amount to ensure that service staff receive a fair wage, regardless of the cost of the meal, as their income largely relies on tips rather than a fixed salary. Despite similar efforts for different priced items, it becomes even more ridiculous when you add wine to the meal. A meal for 2 people could be $100, but a bottle of wine could be $200. Why should there be 2x increase in tip for something that requires minimal effort to retrieve, uncork and pour wine? At a fancier restaurant, people expect knowledgeable and competent waitstaff. The high-end steakhouse is generally going to try to attract better staff than the Chili's in all regards. The physical aspect of moving food is a small part of the job. I suppose in theory a more expensive restaurant would also provide a higher level of customer service, but in practice the threshold for that to make a noticeable difference is above what people who are concerned about tipping go to. Another important aspect to consider is why kitchen staff, who often work just as diligently, if not more so than servers, don't receive a portion of the tips. In some states, tip sharing is even illegal. In general, a higher priced restaurant would be expected to pay their waiters more if tips didn't exist. If you're looking for logic in the tipping discussion, you're gonna be disappointed though. Tipping shouldn't even be a practice. I think businesses should provide fair wages to their employees without relying on customer tips. It's perplexing to me that tipping is the norm in the US. Prep effort doesn't enter into it. The tip goes to a waiter that works the same with a $60 plate or a $20 plate. You can't even hold that the $60 place is fancier if it's the same place. This is why I don't go out to eat anymore. It's become a moral dilemma. I don't need that with my food. I just order pick. They expect to be tipped on as well now. Preparing the food shouldn't even factor in. Tipping is for the table service, people bringing the food from the kitchen to the table and making your drinks. There is no good reason. Just like it takes no more effort for a server to bring you a $3 hot dog or a $30 lobster. My understanding is that at a more expensive restaurant, each wait person does less tables per hour than at a cheap place. I think the assumption is that the size of the bill would roughly correspond to the size of the party being served. Tipping is a type of profit sharing. It encourages the server to upsell, so both server and owner make more money. The level of knowledge of the menu is typically higher in a higher-end restaurant. That's what you're tipping for. Short answer: yes. A customer paying $60 for a steak expects a higher level of service than a customer paying $20. There is no rational logic involved in a tipping system. Any attempt to find any will fail. There is no substantial difference in effort. The fact is, it doesn't really make much sense. Tipping is voluntary. Do what you want, but be prepared for blowback. Might as well ask a question about circumcision. Get the popcorn.